I didn't belong here. The thought circled my mind like a vulture as I knelt in the wet grass, my knees soaking through my jeans, my fingers trembling against the cold marble headstone. Around me, the cemetery stretched in all directions, rows of silent witnesses carved in stone, their shadows long and distorted under the bruised evening sky. Lucia Santoro. Beloved Mother. 1965, 2023. I traced the letters with my fingertip, feeling the bite of guilt sharper than the October wind cutting through my coat. I didn't know this woman. Not really, but I'd been there when she died, and I'd done nothing. I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice cracking. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. The words felt hollow, useless, like everything I'd done in the 6 months since that night, the night I'd watched a woman bleed out on a hospital gurney while the attending physician stood frozen, his hands shaking too badly to hold the scalpel. The night I'd been nothing but a first-year nursing student, shadowing a shift, powerless and terrified. The night her son arrived too late. I hadn't seen his face then, just heard his voice low, shattered, dangerous, echoing down the corridor as security tried to hold him back. The sound had crawled under my skin and stayed there, a splinter I couldn't remove. Now, kneeling at her grave, I let the tears come. They burned hot against my frozen cheeks, and I pressed my forehead to the stone, whispering apologies I had no right to speak. You should have saved her then. The voice came from behind me, quiet, controlled, but laced with something sharp enough to draw blood. I jolted upright, my heart slamming into my ribs. I turned, slipping slightly on the wet grass, and froze. He stood 5 feet away, hands buried in the pockets of a black overcoat that looked like it cost more than my tuition. Tall, broad-shouldered. His face was all brutal angles, sharp jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth set in a line so hard it could have been carved from the same marble as his mother's headstone. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Dark, unreadable, fixed on me like I was something he was deciding whether to destroy. My voice died in my throat. You were there. It wasn't a question. He took a step closer, and I instinctively moved back, my spine hitting the headstone. That night. You were there when she died. My pulse roared in my ears. I wasn't the one. I know who you are, Isla. Hearing my name in his mouth felt like a violation, like he'd reached inside my chest and wrapped his hand around something vital. How, you think I wouldn't find out? His voice dropped lower, softer, and somehow that made it worse. You think I wouldn't learn the name of every person in that room? Every face that watched my mother bleed out while incompetent hands fumbled and failed? It wasn't like that. The words burst out of me, desperate and defensive. The doctor, he froze. I tried to get someone else, but she died anyway. The finality in his tone shattered something inside me. I felt tears spill over again, hot and humiliating, and I hated myself for crying in front of him, for being weak when he was made of stone and fury. I'm sorry, I choked out. I come here sometimes. To apologize. I know it doesn't change anything, but why? The question threw me. What? Why do you come here? He moved closer again, close enough now that I could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the exhaustion shadowing his eyes despite the armor of his expression. Guilt? Pity? Some pathetic attempt to feel like you tried? Because I did try. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to hold his gaze. And it wasn't enough. And I've had to live with that every single day since. Something flickered across his face, too fast to name, gone before I could catch it. He studied me for a long moment, his silence heavier than any accusation. Then he crouched down in front of the grave, his movements precise and controlled, and pulled a single white rose from inside his coat. He placed it gently against the base of the headstone, his fingers lingering on the petals. She liked white roses, he said quietly. Said they reminded her of fresh starts. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if I was supposed to speak at all. He stood, brushing invisible dirt from his hands, and turned those dark, unreadable eyes back on me. You're right, it doesn't change anything. The words landed like a slap. But you're here. His head tilted slightly, a predator assessing prey. Every week, same time, same apologies. My blood turned to ice. You've been watching me? I notice things. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, expensive cedar and smoke, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to keep eye contact, especially things that don't fit. I don't understand. You will. He reached out slowly, deliberately, and his thumb brushed just beneath my eye, catching a tear I hadn't realized was still falling. The touch was gentle, terrifying in its gentleness. "Crying won't save you, Isla," he murmured, his voice low and intimate and utterly merciless. "Not from what's coming." Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the wet grass, leaving me kneeling in front of his mother's grave with my heart hammering and his words echoing in my skull. Not from what's coming. I looked down at the white rose he'd left. Its petals were already browning at the edges, dying before they'd even had a chance to bloom. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him standing in the cemetery like a shadow-given form, his thumb beneath my eye, that terrible gentleness in a touch that promised violence. Not from what's coming. What did that mean? I lay in my cramped studio apartment, staring at the water-stained ceiling, listening to the sirens wail through the city streets below. My phone sat on the nightstand, dark and silent, but I kept glancing at it anyway, like I expected him to call, like he had my number. He probably did. The thought made my stomach twist. At dawn, I gave up on sleep and dragged myself to the hospital for my clinical rotation. The fluorescent lights felt too bright, the antiseptic smell too sharp, everything amplified by exhaustion and the low-grade panic that had taken root in my chest. "Isla, you okay?" I blinked and found my supervisor, Nurse Chen, watching me with concern creasing her forehead. I'd been standing in the supply room for God knew how long, holding a box of gauze like I'd forgotten what hands were for. "Yeah, sorry. Just tired." She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. "Room 304 needs vitals checked. Think you can handle that without falling asleep standing up?" I forced a smile and nodded, grateful for the distraction. Room 304 was a standard post-op recovery middle-aged man. Appendectomy, stable vitals. I went through the motions mechanically, blood pressure cuff, thermometer, pulse ox. The numbers were good. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. So why did I feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall? I finished my shift in a fog and stepped out into the crisp afternoon air, pulling my jacket tight against the wind. The hospital parking lot stretched before me, half empty, shadows lengthening as the sun dipped toward the horizon. That's when I saw the car. Black, sleek, expensive in a way that didn't belong in this neighborhood. It idled near the exit, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside, but I felt the weight of observation like a hand on the back of my neck. My feet stopped moving. The rear door opened. "Get in, Isla." His voice, low and absolute, carrying across the space between us like a command the universe itself would obey. I should have run, should have screamed, should have done literally anything except what I did, which was walk toward that car like a moth, drawn to flame, my heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs might crack. He sat in the back seat, one arm draped across the leather, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. In daylight, or what passed for it in the car's dim interior, he was even more devastating. Beautiful in the way a blade is beautiful. Sharp, dangerous, designed to cut. "You've been following me," I said, trying to sound angry instead of terrified. "Observing." He gestured to the seat beside him. "Sit." "I'd rather not." I wasn't asking. Something in his tone made my knees weak. I climbed into the car, hating myself for the obedience, and the door closed behind me with a soft, final click. The driver pulled away from the curb before I could change my mind. "Where are we going?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Somewhere we can talk." "We're talking now." His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close enough to make my stomach flip. "You're frightened." "You've been stalking me." "Of course I'm frightened." "Good." He shifted slightly, turning to face me fully, and the car suddenly felt too small. "Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive." "Alive from what?" "From the people who'll come for you." He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. "Once they realize you matter to me." My breath caught. I don't matter to you. You don't even know me. I know you visit my mother's grave every Thursday at sunset. I know you work double shifts at St. Mercy's to pay for nursing school. I know you live alone in a fourth-floor walk-up with a broken lock on the fire escape." His eyes held mine, dark and bottomless. "I know you cry in the shower because you think no one can hear you." Horror and humiliation flooded through me in equal measure. "You have no right." "I have every right." His voice dropped to something quieter, more dangerous. "Because 6 months ago, you were in the room when the most important person in my day, world died. That connects us, Isla, whether you like it or not. I didn't want this connection. Neither did I. The admission surprised me. For a moment, something raw flickered across his face. Grief, maybe, or rage, or some twisted combination of both. Then it was gone, locked behind that impenetrable control. The car slowed, pulling up to a building I didn't recognize, glass and steel and money. The kind of place that made me acutely aware of my discount sneakers and fraying jacket. Come. He opened his door, then paused, looking back at me. Or don't. But if you walk away now, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what I was trying to save you from. He stepped out, leaving me alone in the car with his driver, a silent man with scars on his knuckles and eyes that had seen too much. Save you from. Not warn. Save. I thought about my apartment with its broken lock, my routine that he'd mapped like a hunter studying prey, the white rose browning on his mother's grave, things that don't fit. My hand was on the door handle before I'd consciously decided to move. The driver met my eyes in the rearview mirror. He doesn't offer protection to just anyone, Miss Keller. Is that what this is? Protection? Among other things. I stepped out of the car and followed the mafia boss into the building, every instinct screaming that I was making a mistake. But louder than the fear was a single, terrible truth. I needed to know why he thought I was worth saving, even if the answer destroyed me. The elevator rose in silence, the kind that pressed against my eardrums and made every breath feel too loud. He stood beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, far enough that we weren't touching. The space between us hummed with something electric and dangerous. 63 floors. I watched the numbers climb, each one pulling me further from the world I knew. What's your name? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't look at me. You haven't figured it out yet? Santoro, that's all I know. Dante. The name fell from his lips like a confession. Dante Santoro. Dante. Of course. The name fit him, dark, literary, damned. The elevator doors opened onto a penthouse that stole what little breath I had left. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the lights beginning to sparkle as dusk settled over the skyline. Everything was clean lines and expensive simplicity, leather, dark wood, art that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. But my eyes caught on something else. A small table near the window, covered with a white cloth. On it sat a silver frame. His mother, smiling, alive. She was beautiful, I said softly. Dante moved to the bar, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses with practiced precision. She was everything. The past tense carved through the air between us. He handed me a glass. I took it but didn't drink, watching him instead as he stood silhouetted against the dying light. For the first time since the cemetery, he looked almost human. Tired, grieving. Why am I here, Dante? He took a long swallow of his drink, his throat working. 3 weeks ago, someone tried to access my mother's medical records. Not just tried, succeeded. They copied everything. Autopsy reports, toxicology, treatment logs. Ice slid down my spine. Why would someone... Because they're looking for proof. He turned to face me, and the grief was gone, replaced by something harder. Proof that she didn't die from complications during surgery. That someone made sure she died. The glass nearly slipped from my fingers. You think she was murdered? I know she was. His voice was flat, absolute. And whoever did it is covering their tracks. Which means anyone connected to that night is either a loose end or a witness. I didn't see anything. I already told the police everything. The police... He laughed, but there was no humor in it. The police in this city belong to whoever pays them the most. And right now, that's not me. I set my glass down on the nearest surface, my hands shaking. This is insane. I'm a nursing student. I don't know anything about whatever world you live in. You know you were in that room. You know what you saw. He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, and suddenly he was close, too close, his presence overwhelming. And that makes you dangerous to someone. Which makes you valuable to me. I'm not valuable. I'm not anything. His hand came up, fingers catching my chin, tilting my face up to his. The touch was gentle but absolute, leaving no room for escape. You cried on my mother's grave. You apologized to a woman you didn't know because you thought you failed her. His thumb traced my jawline, and I forgot how to breathe. That makes you rare, Isla. In my world, that makes you priceless. I should have pulled away. Should have been terrified. But all I could feel was the warmth of his hand, the intensity of his gaze, the way he looked at me like I was something worth protecting and destroying in equal measure. "I don't understand any of this," I whispered. "You will." He released me, stepping back, and I felt the loss of his touch like a physical ache. "But first, you need to see something." He moved to a desk in the corner, unlocking a drawer and pulling out a folder. When he handed it to me, his expression was carefully blank. Inside were photographs, medical documents, and a name I recognized: Dr. Marcus Webb, the attending physician, the one whose hands had shaken too badly to save Lucia Santoro. But it was the other papers that made my blood run cold. Bank statements, wire transfers, large sums of money moving in and out of accounts in the weeks before and after that night. "Webb was paid," Dante said quietly. "Paid to make sure the surgery failed. Paid to let her die." Horror washed over me in waves. Oh my God. He disappeared 2 weeks ago, before I could ask him. Who hired him? Dante's jaw tightened, which means whoever wanted my mother dead is still out there. Still cleaning up, still eliminating anyone who might connect them to what happened. "And you think they'll come for me?" "I know they will." He moved closer again, and this time, there was something almost gentle in his eyes. "You were there, Isla. You saw Webb freeze. You tried to get help. If they're thorough, and they are, you're on their list." My legs felt weak. I sank onto the leather sofa, the folder trembling in my hands. "What do I do?" "You let me protect you." I looked up at him, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd pulled me into a nightmare I didn't understand. "Why? Why do you care what happens to me?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he crouched in front of me, bringing himself to eye level, and pulled something from his pocket. A small object, silver, delicate, a saint's medal on a thin chain. "My mother was wearing this when she died," he said softly. "I found it in the belongings they returned to me. But when I watched the security footage from that night, I saw something." He pressed the medal into my palm, his fingers warm against mine. "I saw you take it off her, gently, carefully, like it mattered." His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Like she mattered. Tears burned my eyes. I remembered now the elderly woman on the gurney, the delicate chain tangled in the IV line, my fingers working carefully to free it before everything went wrong. "I was going to give it back," I choked out. "But then she and there was so much chaos." "You held onto it." His hand covered mine, the metal caught between our palms. "You kept it safe. For 6 months. I didn't know how to find you." "I know." His eyes held mine, dark and infinite. "That's why I'm not letting you go." I didn't go home that night. Dante made it clear in that quiet, absolute way of his that my apartment wasn't safe anymore. That the broken lock I'd been meaning to fix for months was now a death sentence waiting to happen. He'd already sent someone to pack my essentials. They'd arrive within the hour. "You can't just upend my entire life," I protested, still clutching the saint's medal like a lifeline. "Your life was upended the moment you walked into that operating room." He poured himself another drink, his movements controlled but tense. "I'm just keeping you alive long enough to have one." "And what if I say no? What if I walk out that door right now?" He turned to face me, backlit by the city lights, his expression unreadable. "Then you'll be dead within 48 hours. And I'll have failed to protect the one person who showed my mother kindness in her final moments." The weight of that statement settled over me like a shroud. "That's not fair," I whispered. "No, it's not." He moved to the window, staring out at the glittering skyline. But fairness died with her. I wanted to argue, wanted to rage against the cage, closing around me, but exhaustion and fear had hollowed me out, leaving nothing but a terrible understanding. He was right. I'd seen the bank statements, the money, the proof that someone had paid to murder a woman I couldn't save, and now they'd come for me too. "How long?" My voice cracked. "How long do I have to hide?" "Until I find them." He said it like a promise, like a threat. "However long that takes." The guest room he showed me to was larger than my entire apartment king bed with silk sheets, an ensuite bathroom with heated floors, a view that made my heart ache with its beauty. It should have felt like luxury. It felt like a prison. I stood at the window, watching the city breathe below, wondering how many people down there were living normal lives, going to work, coming home, not trapped in a penthouse with a mafia boss who looked at me like I was something precious and breakable. A knock at the door made me jump. "It's open," I called, expecting one of Dante's silent staff members. Instead, he entered, carrying a tray. Tea, toast. Simple, normal things that felt surreal in this marble and leather world. "You haven't eaten?" he said, setting the tray on the bedside table. "I'm not hungry. You're in shock. Eat anyway." I wanted to refuse out of spite, but my stomach betrayed me with a low growl. I picked up the toast, taking a small bite, and hated how good it tasted. How the simple act of eating something warm made tears prick my eyes. Dante sat in the armchair across from the bed, watching me with that unnerving intensity. "Why are you still here?" I asked. "Making sure you eat. I'm not a child." "No." His gaze traveled over my face, lingering on details I couldn't name. "You're not." The way he said it made heat crawl up my neck. I focused on the tea, wrapping my hands around the warm cup, needing something to hold on to. "Tell me about her," I said suddenly. "Your mother." Not how she died, who she was. Something shifted in his expression. Softened, just fractionally. "She was a teacher," he said quietly. "Literature. Spent 30 years in the same high school, teaching kids who thought Romeo and Juliet was boring." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She made them care. Made them see that stories matter, because people matter." "She sounds wonderful. She was too good for the life I gave her." His jaw tightened. "She begged me to leave, to walk away from the family business. Said the money wasn't worth what it cost. But you didn't." "No." The word fell like a stone. "And she paid the price for my choices." I set down my cup, studying him in the lamplight. This close, I could see the exhaustion carved into the lines of his face, the grief he wore like armor. He wasn't just a mafia boss. He was a son. A man drowning in guilt and rage with nowhere to put it. "It's not your fault she died," I said softly. His eyes snapped to mine, dark and dangerous. "Isn't it? I'm the one who built enemies, who made deals with devils, who painted a target on everyone I love. The person who hired Webb, they're the one who killed her. Not you. I should have protected her better. And I should have saved her." The words burst out before I could stop them. I should have pushed harder, screamed louder, done something instead of just standing there like a useless. I broke off, my throat closing around a sob. Dante was moving before I could blink, crossing the space between us, sinking onto the bed beside me. His hand found mine, fingers threading through mine with surprising gentleness. "You were a student," he said, his voice low and fierce. "You had no authority, no power. What happened to her was orchestrated by people who've been killing for decades. You couldn't have stopped it, but I should have tried harder. You tried." His free hand came up, cupping my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You tried, and you kept her medal safe, and you came to her grave to apologize for something that was never your fault. That's more than most people in this world would do." A tear slipped down my cheek. He caught it with his thumb, the gesture so tender it shattered something inside me. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. "But I promise you, Isla, I won't let them touch you. I'll burn this city to the ground before I let what happened to her happen to you." The intensity in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel safe for the first time in 6 months. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and everything in him went cold and still. "What?" I asked. "What is it?" He stood slowly, his face a mask of controlled fury. "They found your apartment." My blood turned to ice. "What does that mean?" "It means they know I'm protecting you." His eyes met mine, dark and lethal. "And they just declared war." The next 72 hours existed in a strange, suspended reality. Dante disappeared for hours at a private, time handling things. His driver Marco told me with careful vagueness while I paced the penthouse like a caged animal. I wasn't allowed to leave. Wasn't allowed to call anyone. My phone had been replaced with a new one, the only contacts his numbers and emergency services. My life had been reduced to this: expensive walls and the constant awareness that someone wanted me dead. On the third night, Dante returned near midnight. I heard him before I saw him, the elevator chiming, his footsteps in the hallway, the sound of glass on marble as he poured a drink in the kitchen. I'd been trying to sleep, failing miserably. I pulled on the silk robe he'd provided. Everything in the guest room was his: smelled like cedar and smoke and money, and padded barefoot into the living room. He stood at the window, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. His shoulders were rigid, tension radiating from every line of his body. "You're hurt," I said. He didn't turn. "I'm fine." "Your knuckles are bleeding." I said I'm fine. I moved closer despite every instinct telling me to retreat. In the window's reflection, I could see his face, jaw clenched, eyes hollow, a small cut above his eyebrow that hadn't been there this morning. "Let me help." The words came out softer than intended. "I'm a nurse, or almost one. Isla, please." Something in my voice made him turn. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the dim room, the city lights casting shadows across his brutal, beautiful face. Then he nodded. I disappeared into the bathroom, returning with a first aid kit I'd found under the sink. He'd moved to the sofa, sitting with his elbows on his knees, head bowed, defeated in a way I hadn't seen before. I knelt in front of him, the position intimate and wrong and somehow necessary. "Give me your hands." He extended them slowly. His knuckles were raw, split across 3 fingers, dried blood crusted in the creases. I cleaned them gently with antiseptic, hyper-aware of the way his breath hitched when I touched him, of the heat of his skin, of how close we were. "What happened?" I asked quietly. Someone talked. His voice was rough. "Eventually." I didn't ask what that meant. Didn't want to know what methods made someone talk to Dante Santoro. "Did you find out who's behind it?" "No." Frustration bled through the word. Just more hired hands. More dead ends. Whoever ordered my mother's death knows how to cover their tracks. I smoothed antibiotic ointment across his knuckles, then reached for the bandages. And my apartment? Ransacked. They were looking for something. His eyes met mine, dark and haunted, or leaving a message. What kind of message? The kind that says they know I'm protecting you, that they can reach you whenever they want. His jaw tightened. That I can't keep you safe. But you did. I'm here. I'm alive. For now. The bleakness in his tone made my chest ache. I finished wrapping his hand and moved to the cut, above his eyebrow. I had to lean in close, balanced on my knees between his legs, my fingers gentle on his face. He went completely still. "This might sting," I whispered. "I've had worse." I cleaned the cut carefully, conscious of his gaze on my face, of the way his breathing had changed slower, deeper, of the tension coiling between us like a living thing. "There," I said softly. "All done." But I didn't move, couldn't move. His eyes held mine, and I saw something in them that stole my breath, not just desire, though that was there, dark and dangerous, but something softer, vulnerable, need. Isla. My name was a warning, a prayer. "I'm right here." His hand came up slowly, cupping the back of my neck, fingers threading into my hair. The touch was electric, sending shivers down my spine. He pulled me closer incrementally, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. Our foreheads touched. I could feel his breath on my lips, warm and unsteady. Could feel the tremor in his hand, the barely leashed control that kept him from closing the distance. "Tell me to stop," he breathed. "I can't." Something broke in him. His mouth found mine in a kiss that was nothing like I'd imagined, not rough or demanding, but achingly gentle, reverent. Like I was something holy he was afraid to break. I melted into him, my hands finding his shoulders, his chest, feeling the rapid thunder of his heartbeat beneath my palm. He pulled me closer, one hand still cradled at my neck, the other wrapping around my waist, and the kiss deepened into something desperate. He tasted like whiskey and grief, and something indefinable that made me want to crawl inside his skin. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine again, eyes closed. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably. I shouldn't. I know. If something happens to you because of me." I silenced him with another kiss, shorter this time but no less intense. "Then we'll deal with it, together." His eyes opened, searching mine for something I didn't understand. "You don't know what you're saying." "Maybe not, but I know I'm tired of being afraid, and I know that when you touch me, I feel safer than I have in 6 months." He made a sound low in his throat, half growl, half surrender, and pulled me up onto the sofa beside him, tucking me against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, still racing, feel the tension slowly draining from his body. "Stay," he murmured into my hair. "Just stay here. Tonight." "Okay." We sat in the darkness, wrapped around each other, the city breathing below us. For a moment, the danger felt far away. For a moment, it was just us two broken people finding something like peace in each other's arms. His phone shattered the moment. He tensed, reaching for it, and I watched his face go from soft to lethal in a heartbeat. "What?" I asked, fear creeping back in. He stood, his body coiled tight with barely contained violence. "They took Marco," he said flatly, "and they're offering a trade." "A trade for what?" His eyes met mine, and I saw my death reflected there. "For you." "No." The word was absolute, final. Dante was already moving, pulling his jacket back on, his phone pressed to his ear, barking orders in Italian too rapid for me to follow. I scrambled off the sofa, my legs unsteady. "What do you mean, no?" "They have Marco, and they're not getting you." He didn't look at me, his attention divided between the phone and checking the gun he'd pulled from a drawer. The sight of it made my stomach lurch. "This is what they want, to draw me out, to make me desperate enough to hand you over. He's your driver. You're your friend, isn't he?" Something flickered across Dante's face. Pain, quickly buried. He knew the risks. "That's not good enough." My voice cracked. "You can't just leave him to die because of me." He crossed the room in 3 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders, his face inches from mine. "Listen to me very carefully, Isla. Marco has been with me for 12 years. He's saved my life more times than I can count. And if he were standing here right now, he would tell me the exact same thing I'm about to tell you. Your life is worth more than his. That's insane. That's loyalty." His grip tightened. "That's what you don't understand about this world. We don't trade pieces. We don't negotiate with people who take what's ours. Because the moment we do, we're weak. And weakness gets everyone killed." Tears burned my eyes. "So what, you just let them murder him?" "I'm going to get him back." His voice dropped, deadly quiet. "But not by giving them what they want." He released me, turning back to his phone, and I felt the dismissal like a slap. I wasn't part of this. Wasn't part of his world. I was just the civilian he'd decided to protect, the liability he had to manage. The thought made something inside me harden. "Then I'm coming with you." He went still. Slowly, he turned to face me, his expression incredulous. "Absolutely not. You said they want to draw you out. That means they're watching, waiting." I lifted my chin, forcing strength into my voice I didn't feel. "If I stay here alone, I'm a sitting duck. At least with you, I have a chance. With me, you'll be walking into a war zone. I'm already in one." I moved closer, holding his gaze. "The only difference is whether I'm hiding or fighting." For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then something shifted in his expression, not quite approval, but something like respect. "You have no idea what you're asking. So show me." 20 minutes later, I was in the back of an armored SUV, wearing a bulletproof vest that weighed more than my entire nursing school textbook collection. Dante sat beside me, his presence both comforting and terrifying, while 2 of his men occupied the front seats cold-eyed, silent professionals who looked like they'd been born holding weapons. "The raided exchange location is an abandoned warehouse in Red Hook," Dante explained, his voice clinical. "Classic trap setup. They'll have high ground, multiple exits, probably snipers." "Comforting," I muttered. His hand found mine in the darkness, squeezing once. "You stay in the car, no matter what happens. You hear gunfire, you get down and you don't move until I come back for you. And if you don't come back, then Luca drives you to the secondary safe house and you disappear." He said it like he was discussing dinner plans. New identity, new life. "You forget you ever knew me." The casual way he discussed his own death made my chest constrict. "That's not going to happen." "It might. Then I'll remember you anyway." The words came out fierce, surprising us both. "You don't get to decide what I forget." Something raw crossed his face. He leaned closer, his forehead touching mine like it had on the sofa hours ago. A lifetime ago. "You're going to haunt me, aren't you?" he whispered. "Probably." His laugh was short, humorless. "Good. I deserve it." Before I could respond, the SUV slowed. Through the tinted windows, I could see the warehouse a hulking shadow against the night sky. Windows dark, the surrounding area eerily empty. Dante's entire body changed. The softness vanished, replaced by something cold and lethal. This was the mafia boss. The killer. The man who'd made people talk with his bloodied knuckles. "Remember," he said, his eyes locked on the building. "Stay down. Stay quiet. Stay alive." Then he was gone, slipping out of the SUV with fluid grace, his men following like shadows. I watched through the window as they approached the warehouse, weapons drawn, moving with terrifying precision. Minutes crawled by. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Then movement. A figure emerging from the warehouse. Marco. Battered. Bleeding. But alive. Relief flooded through me. Too soon. The crack of gunfire shattered the night. I screamed, ducking down as the SUV's windows splintered bulletproof, but the impact still jarring. More shots. Shouting. Chaos erupting like a symphony of violence. Luca, the driver, was barking into his radio, trying to get a clear picture. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Could only pray that Dante was alive, that this wasn't how it ended. The back door flew open, but it wasn't Dante. A man I didn't recognize grabbed my arm, yanking me from the vehicle with bruising force. I screamed, fighting, but he was stronger, dragging me toward a second car idling in the shadows. "Got her!" he shouted. "Move, move!" Terror whited out my vision. This was it. This was how I died. Then the man's head snapped back, a red mist blooming in the air. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings, and I fell with him, his blood hot and sticky on my hands. Dante appeared through the smoke and chaos, his face spattered with blood that wasn't his eyes wild and feral. He pulled me up, shielding me with his body as more gunfire erupted. "I've got you," he growled. "I've got you." We ran. My legs barely worked, but he half-carried me, moving with impossible speed back toward the SUV. Bullets sparked off concrete. Someone screamed. The world was fire and violence and death. We dove into the vehicle. Luca floored it before the door even closed. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Dante pulled me against him, his arms iron bands around my body, his heart racing as fast as mine. "You're okay," he kept saying. "You're okay. You're okay." But I wasn't, because clutched in my bloodied hand was something the dead man had dropped. A photograph of me, with a red X marked across my face, and written on the back, in elegant script, "She remembers. Make her forget." I couldn't stop shaking. Back at the penthouse, I sat on the bathroom floor, the guest bathroom, not mine, because mine felt too open, too vulnerable with my knees pulled to my chest and blood still crusted under my fingernails. I'd tried washing it off 3 times. It wouldn't come clean. She remembers. Make her forget. The words circled my mind like vultures. What did I remember? The surgery? Webb's shaking hands? Lucia Santoro's face going slack as life drained from her body? Or something else? Something I'd seen and buried so deep I couldn't reach it anymore. A knock on the door made me flinch. "Isla," Dante's voice, rough with exhaustion and something that sounded like fear. "Let me in. I'm fine. You're not. And I'm coming in anyway." The door opened. He'd cleaned up, changed his blood-spattered shirt, washed his face, but his eyes were still wild, haunted. He took one look at me curled on the floor and his carefully constructed control cracked. He sank down beside me, pulling me into his arms without asking permission. I went willingly, burying my face against his chest, breathing in cedar and smoke, and the faint metallic tang of violence that clung to him like a second skin. "I almost lost you," he said into my hair. I turned for 1 second and but you didn't. My voice was muffled against his shirt. "I'm here." "You shouldn't be." His arms tightened around me. "You should be anywhere but here. Anywhere but with me." I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "That photograph, what does it mean?" His jaw clenched. "It means whoever ordered my mother's death thinks you witnessed something. Something specific enough to be dangerous. But I didn't. I don't remember anything unusual." "Then we need to make you remember." He stood, pulling me up with him, his hands gentle despite the urgency in his voice. "Every detail. Everything you saw that night. Even things that seemed insignificant." He led me to his office, a room I hadn't been allowed in before. All dark wood and leather and technology that probably cost more than a house. He gestured to the sofa while he moved to his desk, pulling up files on dual monitors. "Tell me," he said. "Start from the beginning." I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to organize the chaos of that night into something coherent. I arrived at 7. My supervisor assigned me to shadow Dr. Webb in OR3. Your mother came in around 8:30. Emergency surgery, internal bleeding from what they thought was a perforated ulcer. Dante's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up medical records, security footage. Go on. Webb seemed off, distracted. He kept checking his phone between scrubs. The memory surfaced slowly, details I hadn't thought about in months. Someone called him right before we went in. He answered it, which was weird because you're not supposed to take calls once you're prepped. Did you hear what was said? I closed my eyes, reaching for the memory. Not clearly, but he looked scared. He said something like, I can't or I won't, then just fine. Like he'd agreed to something. Dante went very still. What time was this call? 8:40? 8:45? He pulled up phone. Records, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. Minutes passed. Then, there. His voice was deadly quiet. 8:43 p.m. Incoming call from a burner phone. Lasted 90 seconds. Can you trace it? Already did. 6 months ago. Dead end. He turned to face me. But now we know the timeline. Someone called him right before surgery. Gave him instructions or threats. Made sure he'd fail. The pieces were clicking together, horrible and inevitable. He wasn't just incompetent. He was sabotaging her on purpose. Yes. Dante's hands curled into fists. What else? Was anyone else in the room? Anyone who shouldn't have been there? I forced myself back into that night, past the fear and chaos, searching for details. The surgical team. 2 nurses, I don't remember their names. An anesthesiologist. Doctor. Carver was supervising, but he left halfway through. He left? Dante's attention sharpened. Why? Someone paged him. Emergency in another OR. He told Webb to handle it. I frowned. Something nagging at me. But that was weird too. Because when everything started going wrong, we paged him back, and he didn't come. It took 15 minutes before anyone responded. 15 minutes. Dante pulled up more files. Long enough for her to bleed out. Long enough to make sure there was no saving her. Horror crawled up my spine. You think Carver was involved? I think everyone in that room was either bought or blocked. His voice was ice. They created the perfect storm. Webb to fail. Carver removed. He stopped, his eyes finding mine. You were the only variable they didn't control. I tried to get help. I know. He crossed to me, crouching in front of the sofa, his hands finding mine. You tried, which means you saw them fail. Saw Webb freeze deliberately. Saw that it wasn't an accident. But I didn't understand what I was seeing. Not then. But you could now. His grip tightened. If you testified, if you connected the dots, you're the only witness who wasn't part of the plan. The only one who could prove it was murder. The weight of it crashed over me. That's why they want me dead. Yes. And you. My voice broke. You knew. You've known this whole time. That's why you found me. Why you've been protecting me. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe. Initially, yes. I needed to know what you saw. Whether you could help me find who killed her. And now? He was silent for a long moment. Then his hand came up, cupping my face with devastating gentleness. Now you're not just a witness, he said quietly. Now you're... His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and every ounce of color drained from his face. What? I whispered, fear spiking through me. He turned the phone so I could see. A video, grainy security footage, time-stamped from tonight. Of me, in the warehouse parking lot, clear as day. And beneath it, a message. Dr. Carver sends his regards. You have 48 hours to turn her over, or we release this to the families. Let them know Dante Santoro's weakness. Let them come for her themselves. I looked at Dante, watched the control fracture, saw the fury and fear warring in his eyes. Who are the families? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would destroy whatever fragile safety I had left. His voice was hollow. Everyone who wants me dead. 48 hours became 40 in the time it took to breathe. Dante's penthouse transformed into a fortress. Men I'd never seen materialized from shadows, hard-eyed, armed, speaking in clipped Italian and checking weapons with the casual efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times before. The windows were reinforced with additional security. Every entrance monitored, every exit guarded. I was the eye of a hurricane I'd never asked to be in. Eat something, Dante said, appearing beside me with a plate I hadn't asked for. We'd barely spoken since the video. Since the 48-hour countdown began ticking in both our heads. I'm not hungry. You need your strength. For what? I turned to face him, exhaustion and fear sharpening my voice. Sitting here waiting to die? Or being handed over to save your empire? The words were cruel. I knew it even as they left my mouth. But fear made me vicious, made me lash out at the one person trying to keep me alive. His expression didn't change. I'm not handing you over. Then what's the plan, Dante? Because from where I'm sitting, we're just waiting for them to... The plan, he interrupted, his voice deadly quiet, is to find Dr. Carver before the deadline and make him tell me who's really behind this. Then I eliminate them. Permanently. And if you can't find him in time... He was silent for a moment too long. Then we disappear. Both of us. New identities. New lives. We run until they forget about you. They won't forget. You said it yourself, I'm the only witness. Then I'll make sure they can't reach you. He moved closer, and I saw the exhaustion carved into every line of his face, the weight of impossible choices dragging him down, even if it costs me everything. Before I could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway, still bandaged, still moving stiffly from the warehouse beating, but alive and determined. We found him, he said. Carver, he's at his lake house upstate. Alone. Dante's entire demeanor shifted. The exhausted man vanished, replaced by the predator. How long ago? 15 minutes. Thermal confirms one body inside. No security. He's running, I said quietly. Both men turned to look at me. He knows you're coming for him. That's why he's alone. He's waiting to disappear. Dante's jaw tightened. Then we go now. Before he gets the chance. I should have stayed at the penthouse. Should have listened to every rational instinct screaming that I had no place in what was about to happen. But I couldn't, because Carver was the key, the one person who could confirm what I'd seen, who could end this nightmare. And I needed to look him in the eyes. Needed to understand why he'd let a woman die. The drive upstate was silent, tension thick enough to choke on. Dante sat beside me, his hand resting on my thigh, possessive, protective, the only warmth in the cold night. Marco drove while two other men followed in a second vehicle. When we get there, Dante said quietly, you stay in the car. I need to talk to him. No. His grip tightened. What I'm about to do, you don't need to see that. Don't need that in your head. I've already seen you kill someone. The words came out flat. True. The man at the warehouse, his head snapping back, blood misting the air. I'm already in this, Dante. All the way. He studied my face in the darkness, searching for something. You don't understand what you're asking to witness. Then show me. I held his gaze. Show me what you really are. Because if we're running together, I couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't name what was, growing between us. I need to know all of you. Not just the parts you think I can handle. Something raw and painful crossed his expression. You might not like what you see. I'll survive. The lake house was isolated. A modernist structure of glass and wood perched on the water's edge, every window blazing with light. Carver clearly wasn't trying to hide. Or maybe he knew hiding was pointless. Dante moved with his men in perfect synchronization, breaching the door with silent efficiency. I followed despite every order to stay back, my heart hammering against my ribs. We found Carver in the living room, sitting in an armchair with a glass of scotch, staring at the lake through floor-to-ceiling windows. He didn't turn when we entered. Didn't even flinch. I've been expecting you, he said calmly. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, hauling Carver up by his collar, slamming him against the window hard enough to crack the glass. Who hired you? Does it matter? Carver's smile was bitter, resigned. You'll kill me either way. The difference is how long it takes. Dante's voice was ice and razors. Talk now. It's quick. Make me work for it, and you'll beg for death long before I give it to you. I watched from the doorway, frozen. This was the man who'd held me on the bathroom floor, who'd kissed me with devastating gentleness, who looked at me like I was something precious. This was also a man who could promise torture without hesitation. Both truths existed in the same body, the same soul. She won't want you after this, Carver said, his eyes finding mine across the room. Once she sees what you're capable of, once she understands the monster you really are. Dante didn't look at me. I know. Something in my chest cracked. Because he'd accepted that showing me this darkness would drive me away. But he was doing it anyway. For answers. For justice. For his mother. It was Marconi, Carver said suddenly, the name falling like a bomb. Victor Marconi hired me, paid Webb, arranged everything. The name meant nothing to me, but Dante went absolutely still. Victor? His voice was barely a whisper. My father's oldest friend? Your father's oldest enemy, Carver corrected. Who's been waiting 20 years for the right moment to take everything from you, starting with what you loved most? Dante released him so abruptly, Carver stumbled. That's impossible. Victor has been... He helped me after my father died. He's been positioning himself to take over. Carver laughed, the sound hollow. And you handed him the perfect opportunity. Your mother, the one person keeping you human, the one thing standing between you and becoming exactly what your father was. Why tell me this? Dante's hand was on his gun. Why not just run? Because I'm already dead. Carver gestured to the scotch glass. Poison. Took it 20 minutes ago. I'd rather die on my terms than wait for Marconi to tie up loose ends. Horror washed over. We need to call. There's no antidote. Carver's legs gave out. He slid down the window, leaving a smear of sweat on the glass. But I'll give you something before I go. Your girl, she didn't just witness the surgery. She heard me. On the phone. In the hallway afterward. My mind raced backward. The hallway. After everything went wrong, I'd been in shock, crying. And, you were arguing with someone, I whispered. The memory surfaced like something drowning. You said she wasn't supposed to see. And the other person said, then make sure she forgets, Carver finished. That was Victor. On speakerphone. And you... He coughed, blood speckling his lips. You looked right at me, right at us. The world tilted. I had seen, I had heard, and I'd buried it so deep under trauma and guilt that I'd forgotten entirely. Until now. Dante turned to me, his face a mask of controlled devastation. Isla. Carver's body convulsed. Once, twice, then went still, and my phone, the new one Dante had given me, buzzed in my pocket. A text. From an unknown number. Did he tell you? Did you finally remember? Good. Now you understand why you have to die. Victor Marconi knew. Knew I'd remembered. Knew where we were. Knew everything. He's tracking the phone, Marco said, already moving. We need to go. Now. Dante grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door, but I couldn't move. Couldn't think past the horror of understanding. I'd looked into Victor Marconi's eyes 6 months ago and forgotten. Buried the memory so completely that I'd made myself a target without even knowing why. Isla, move! Dante's voice cut through my paralysis. We ran for the SUV, gravel crunching under our feet. Behind us, Dante's men were already torching the lake house, erasing evidence, eliminating the scene. The night erupted in orange flame and chemical heat. I dove into the back seat. Dante followed, barking orders in rapid Italian. Marco floored it before the doors fully closed, tires screaming as we fishtailed onto the road. He's been watching us this entire time, I said, my voice hollow. Every move we've made. Not anymore. Dante pulled the phone from my hand and crushed it under his heel. Then his own phone. Then Marco's. No electronics, no signals. We go dark. Where? Marco asked, eyes on the rearview mirror. The cabin. Dante's jaw was set. The one my mother kept. Victor doesn't know about it. Are you sure? She never told anyone. Not even me until... His voice caught. Until the week before she died. She said I'd need a place to disappear someday, that the life I chose would eventually require it. The grief in his voice made my chest ache. Even from beyond death, his mother was trying to save him, trying to save us both. The cabin was 2 hours north, deeper into wilderness that swallowed the SUV's headlights like a living thing. No streetlights, no houses, just trees and darkness and the growing certainty that we were running out of places to hide. When we finally arrived, it was nearly dawn. The cabin was small, rustic, nothing like Dante's penthouse wood and stone and simplicity, the kind of place built for people who needed to remember what mattered. Marco and the other men secured the perimeter while Dante led me inside. He moved through the space with careful reverence, touching things that had been his mother's books, blankets, a photograph on the mantel of a young Dante smiling like he still believed in happiness. She came here to think, he said quietly. When my father's world got too loud, too violent, She'd disappear for days and come back softer, like the trees had reminded her who she was. I watched him trace the photograph's frame, saw the boy in the picture buried under years of violence and loss. What happened to him? I asked. That boy? He learned the world doesn't care about soft things. Dante turned to face me, his eyes dark and infinite. He learned that love makes you vulnerable, that caring about someone gives your enemies a weapon. Is that why you've been pushing me away, even while keeping me close? I'm not. You are. I moved closer, closing the distance between us. You kiss me like I matter, then tell me I shouldn't be here. You protect me with your life, then act like saving me is just strategy. Which is it, Dante? What am I to you? The question hung between us, heavy with everything unspoken. He stopped, jaw clenched, fighting some internal war. You're the first person in 10 years who looked at me and saw something worth saving, who cried for my mother, who stayed when anyone with sense would run. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. His voice cracked slightly. Because the truth is terrifying. Tell me anyway. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, I saw raw, devastating honesty. You're everything I can't afford to want. Everything I'll destroy just by touching. And His hand came up, cupping my face with such gentleness it hurt. I'm in love with you. Completely. Catastrophically. In a way that will get us both killed. The words shattered something inside me. Rebuilt it into something new. Then let it kill us, I whispered. But let us have this first. I kissed him. He kissed me back like a drowning man, finding air desperate, consuming, full of 6 months of grief and fear and longing we'd both been denying. His hands found my waist, pulling me against him, and I felt his heart racing as fast as mine. We stumbled backward toward the sofa, shedding armor and distance and all the reasons this was impossible. His touch was reverent and hungry, exploring like he was memorizing every inch of me. I pulled at his shirt, needing skin, needing proof that we were both still alive. Isla, my name was a prayer and a warning. If we do this, I know. I held his face between my hands, forcing him to meet my eyes. I know what it means. I know the cost, and I'm choosing it. Anyway, choosing you. Something broke in him. The last wall crumbled. He lifted me, carrying me to the bedroom with careful urgency, laying me on sheets that smelled like cedar and memory. What happened next was gentle and fierce, tender and desperate, two people trying to pour lifetimes into stolen moments. He touched me like I was holy. I held him like he was home, and for hours that felt like minutes. The danger outside disappeared. There was just us. Just skin and breath and whispered promises we both knew we might not get to keep. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder, my head on his chest listening to his heartbeat slow. I won't let him take you, Dante murmured into my hair. Whatever it costs, whatever I have to become. You're already everything you need to be. You don't know what I'm capable of, what I'll do to keep you safe. Then show me. I lifted my head, meeting his eyes. Show me, and let me decide if I still want to stay. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, Victor Marconi has 3 children, 2 sons, 1 daughter, all innocent, all unconnected to what he's done. My blood went cold. Dante. In my world, you don't just eliminate the threat, you eliminate the legacy. Make sure revenge can't follow you. His voice was hollow, factual. It's what my father would have done, what everyone expects me to do. But it's not what your mother would want. No. He pulled me closer, which is why I'm going to offer Victor a trade instead. What kind of trade? His eyes met mine, and I saw the terrible calculation there, the choice that would haunt him forever. Me, he said simply. My empire, my life, in exchange for yours, for his word that you walk away from this alive and free. Horror crashed over me. No, absolutely not. The window exploded inward. Glass rained down as men in black poured through 4, 5, 6 of them. Marco's shout of warning came too late. Dante moved to shield me, reaching for the gun on the nightstand, but they were faster. A dart hit his neck. He stumbled, his eyes going wide with shock. No! I screamed, catching him as he fell. The last thing I saw before something struck my head was Victor Marconi stepping through the broken window, smiling. Hello, Isla, he said gently. Let's talk about what you remember. Then darkness took me. I woke to cold, concrete beneath my cheek, darkness pressing against my eyes, pain throbbing through my skull like a second heartbeat. I tried to move and discovered my hands were bound behind my back, zip ties cutting into my wrists. Memory crashed back. The cabin. The window exploding. Dante falling. Dante. His name tore from my throat, raw and desperate. He's alive. Victor Marconi's voice came from somewhere to my left. For now. My eyes adjusted slowly. We were in a warehouse, another one, because apparently that's where all terrible things happened in this world. Bare bulbs cast harsh shadows. The air smelled like rust and fear. And there, 20 feet away, Dante knelt with his hands bound, 2 armed men flanking him. Blood trickled from his temple. His eyes found mine, and I saw fury and terror warring in equal measure. "Don't hurt her," he said, his voice hoarse. "Victor, please, this is between us." "No, my boy. This stopped being between us the moment you started protecting witnesses." Victor stepped into my line of sight, 60s. Distinguished, the kind of man who looked like someone's beloved grandfather. I tried to be merciful, tried to give you chances to hand her over quietly. But you insisted on this. Attachment. She has nothing to do with your war against me. She has everything to do with it. Victor's composure cracked. She's the proof, Dante. The one person who can testify that your mother's death was murder. Who can connect me to Webb, to Carver, to all of it. Do you understand what that means? It means you killed an innocent woman to hurt me. Dante's voice was ice. Because you couldn't beat my father, so you waited until I was alone to strike. Your father took everything from me. The words exploded from Victor. My territory. My respect. My son. His voice broke. He killed my son and called it business. So yes, I waited. Waited until you had something to lose. Someone who made you human again. Understanding crashed over me. This wasn't just about territory or power. This was grief wearing the mask of revenge. Your son was trafficking children, Dante said quietly. My father stopped him. Permanently. That's not murder, that's justice. That's what you tell yourself to sleep at night? Victor laughed bitterly. My Alessandro was trying to protect those children. He was going to expose the real traffickers, people in your father's organization. So your father silenced him. That's a lie, is it? Victor pulled out a folder, throwing it at Dante's feet. Documents, proof. Your father's real ledgers, showing every dirty deal, every innocent life traded for profit. Alessandro was going to the FBI, so he had to die. I watched Dante's face as he looked at the papers, saw something fundamental crack in his expression. No, my father he had rules. Your father was a monster who taught you to be one too. Victor turned to me. But you're different, aren't you, Isla? You still believe in justice, in truth, in doing the right thing. Don't talk to her. Dante started. So let me offer you a choice. Victor crouched in front of me. You can testify. Tell the world what you remember, how I orchestrated Lucia Santoro's death. I'll go to prison. Dante will finally have his justice. He paused. But you'll also have to reveal what's in these documents. Prove that the Santoro Empire was built on atrocities. That every dollar Dante has came from suffering. He leaned closer. Or you can forget. Walk away. I'll give you money. A new identity. A chance at the normal life you deserve. And Dante gets to keep his legacy intact. His mother's memory unsullied by the truth of what his father really was. Don't listen to him, Dante said desperately. Isla, whatever he's offering, the truth. Victor's eyes held mine. I'm offering her the truth. And the choice of what to do with it. My mind raced. 6 months ago, I'd been a nursing student who believed in saving lives. Now I was kneeling in a warehouse, holding the power to destroy or save the man I loved. Because I did love him. Completely. Catastrophically. What happens to Dante? I asked quietly. In either scenario? If you testify, he survives. Faces some legal troubles, but survives. Victor's smile was cold. If you forget, then I'm afraid loose ends must be tied. He knows too much now. Loves you too much to let this go. So either I destroy him legally or you kill him. My voice was steady despite the terror. Those are my options? Those are the consequences of truth. I looked at Dante, this brutal, tender man who'd protected me, held me, loved me despite every reason not to. Who'd offered to trade his empire for my safety. Who deserved better than a father's sins or a friend's revenge? There's a third option, I said. Victor's eyes narrowed. And what would that be? I testify against you. Every detail I remember. Every conversation I overheard. I held his gaze. But the FBI doesn't get those documents. Because they didn't come from me, they came from an illegal search. Inadmissible. You'd let the truth about his father stay buried? Victor looked genuinely confused. To protect him? To protect his mother's memory. My voice strengthened. Lucia Santoro spent 30 years teaching kids about stories and redemption, about how people can be more than their worst choices. She deserves that grace too, to be remembered as the woman she was, not the monster she married. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Hope, devastation, love so intense it hurt to witness. And, Dante, I turned to face him fully. He gets to choose who he becomes next. Not his father's son, not your enemy, just himself. Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he stood, nodding to his men. Your girl just saved your life, Dante. He headed toward the exit, pausing at the door. The documents were copies anyway. I've already sent the originals to the FBI, so she didn't save your legacy, just your breathing. The door slammed. Gunfire erupted outside Marco and the others, finally breaking through. Within minutes, we were free, bleeding and shaking in each other's arms while Victor's men fled into the night. You shouldn't have protected me, Dante whispered against my hair. My father, what he did, was his choice, not yours. I pulled back to meet his eyes. Now you get to make different ones. 6 weeks later, Victor Marconi was arrested. I testified. Dante wasn't charged, insufficient evidence of personal wrongdoing. The media called it justice. We called it survival. Now we stand on a beach somewhere warm, new names, new lives. The empire sold to people who promised reform. Dante teaches literature at a community college. I finished nursing school online. Every Thursday at sunset, we visit a small memorial garden we planted. White roses, a stone bench, his mother's name carved in marble. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, I see that boy from the photograph, the one who still believes soft things can survive in a hard world. Because we did.